Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to dive into a question that I think has bugged almost everyone at some point, especially if you've ever tried to learn a new language. Seriously, what is it? What's that one magic trick that lets some people just soak up languages like a sponge, while so many of us struggle for years just to get one down? It feels like there should be a simple answer, but, well, the journey to find it is way more interesting than you might think. So our story kicks off with someone who you'd think would have it all figured out. She speaks 8 languages. People were always asking her for her secret. But for the longest time, her real honest answer was just, I don't know. She just enjoyed it. And that answer wasn't cutting it for her, or for anyone else. So she decided to go on a quest to figure out what really connects the world's most successful language learners. Her search led her to this incredible gathering of polyglots, basically a giant meetup where hundreds of people who love languages get together to practice and share their secrets. She thought, okay, if there's a secret formula, I'm going to find it here. Her mission was simple: talk to everybody she could and find that one common thread. First up, she met Benny from Ireland. And his method? Just start talking. Right away, from day one. He told her he just grabs a travel phrasebook, learns a few basic lines, and then immediately goes and finds native speakers to talk to. He's not scared of making hundreds of mistakes. In fact, he embraces it. For him, every single mistake is just a chance to learn from real-time feedback. Then she meets Lucas from Brazil, and his method for learning Russian was, well, it was pure genius. Get this, he added 100 random Russian speakers on Skype. He'd send a message to person A, just hi, in Russian. When they replied, he'd copy their message and paste it to person B. When person B replied to that, he'd copy it and send it back to person A. He literally got 2 strangers to have a full conversation with each other using him as the go-between. And by just watching this natural conversation happen, he started picking it up himself. How clever is that? But here's where it got messy. The more people she talked to, the more confusing it all became. Some people swore you had to imitate sounds first. Others said, no, just learn the 500 most common words. One person would tell her to start with grammar, and the very next person would say to never, ever study grammar. It felt like everyone had a totally different and often opposite secret. The search wasn't leading to a clear answer. It was just a jumble of conflicting advice. And then, right there, standing in the middle of all of this chaos, listening to all these passionate people describe their completely unique systems, that's when it finally hit her, the real answer. The secret wasn't the method. It was never about the method. It was the feeling behind it. The one single thing that every single one of these successful polyglots had in common was that they had found a way to enjoy the process. They weren't studying, they were playing. They had turned what feels like a chore into something they genuinely loved to do. And that's when her own journey suddenly clicked into place. She realized she'd been doing this all along without even knowing it. When she got bored with her Spanish textbook, what did she do? She went and read the Spanish translation of Harry Potter, a book she already adored. How did she learn German? She just started rewatching her favorite show, Friends, but in German. It was never about forcing herself through boring stuff. It was about bringing the language into the things she already found fun. But here's the thing. She also realized that enjoyment, as absolutely essential as it is, isn't quite enough all by itself. To actually get fluent, you need to combine that fun with some solid structure. And that structure is built on 4 key pillars. So, what's the real formula? Okay, it starts with enjoyment. That's the engine. But then you build on that with effective methods that actually work. A clear system to keep you consistent, and, a healthy dose of patience. When you get all 4 of those working together, that's when things really start to happen. So let's talk about Pillar 2, effective methods. I mean, think about cramming for a test. We've all done it. You might remember the words for a day or two, but then, poof, they're gone. An effective method, something like spaced repetition, is totally different. By reviewing words at just the right times, you're basically telling your brain, hey, this is important. Keep it. And that's how you move words from your short-term memory into your long-term memory. Pillar 3 is all about creating a system. Let's be real, we're all busy. Nobody just has tons of free time lying around to learn a language. But you can find that time by weaving it into the routine you already have. It's not about finding 3 empty hours a day. It's about planning to listen to a podcast on your commute or flipping through some flashcards while your coffee is brewing. A system makes learning a natural, automatic part of your day. And finally, pillar 4, patience. Look, you are not going to be fluent in 2 months. It's just not going to happen. But what you can do is make real, noticeable progress. The trick is to actually notice and celebrate those small wins. That moment you understand your first joke in another language, that is pure gold. That's the stuff that fuels you and keeps you going for the long haul.
Okay, so with this whole framework in mind, we can finally tackle the biggest myth in language learning, the one thing that stops so many people before they even get started.
You know what I'm talking about. It's this idea that some people are just naturally good at languages and other people aren't. We tell ourselves we just don't have that language gene. But what if that whole idea is completely wrong? Let's go back and look at those 2 polyglots from the beginning of our story. Remember Benny, the guy who just dives in and starts talking? Well, for the first 21 years of his life, he was totally convinced he was awful at languages. He spent 11 years studying Irish in school and couldn't hold a conversation. It was only when he ditched the traditional methods and found his own fun way to learn that everything changed. Today, that same guy speaks 10 languages. And what about Lucas, the Skype mastermind? He spent a decade of his life as one of the worst English students in his entire class. His friends even used to make fun of him for it. But when he started experimenting and found methods that actually worked for him, he unlocked his potential. Today, that bad student speaks 11 languages fluently. Their stories prove it's not about talent, it's about finding the right method. So what does this all boil down to? If you remember nothing else from this journey, remember these 3 things. First, enjoyment isn't just a nice little bonus. It is the absolute foundation of learning anything effectively. Second, you have to combine that fun with good methods, a solid system, and some patience. And third, and this is the big one, the language gene is a myth. Anyone can do this. Success comes from finding your method, not from being born with some special gift. And that leaves us with one final question for you. If you've ever given up on a language because you thought it was too hard, or maybe that you just weren't good enough, maybe it's time to rethink that. What's one fun thing, reading a book you love, watching your favorite show, playing a video game, that could be your secret key to finally unlocking a new language?